Hello everybody, and today we start my first Omega Strikers video with Mako for Dummies. We will see all her skills, abilities and toolset, and then I'm gonna also give you some tips on how to play her right in the end. So let's not wait any longer and let's start with probably the least important part, which are the Mako. It's a character that can play both forward and goalie depending on the situation or the preference of the player. She reminds me a lot of Asher in terms of stat and how she's supposed to play, with the difference that when played forward, unlike Asher that's more of an aggression type character, she decides more to play on the midfield. She has over average stagger, size and damage, however she compensates for some speed. Exactly the same stats as Asher basically. Except she's like not as big as some of the bigger boys like Dubu and X. In the goal, she decides to play a bit of a more longer range game, while also still being good in most scenarios anyway. So to be honest, you can just kinda play this character however you want. Just remember though, use the bat. Always use the bat to its fullest. Her passive ability is called Beat, where every 8 hits, either with a skill or with a strike, she will obtain a more powerful strike both for the core and that can also hit her opponents. This makes it really good, especially when time stalling using the walls or when dribbling as you approach, because this way you're gonna build your next strike for when eventually you're gonna try to go. Her primary is called Perfect Pitch, which is a 2-stage ability. If you just tap the button, Mako will just swing her bat and hit the core, slowing it down significantly. Instead, if you hold down the button, Mako will charge a projectile that will travel in the direction that you're aiming. This basically means that she has 2 primaries, one to slow down the core if you're the goalie or the forward and you want a bit more control over the core, or a projectile that not only is very good at killing, but if you're the goalie, it can also help the forwards with their strikes. These sort of 2-stage abilities will be sort of a team with Mako, as we're gonna see them soon. So don't worry, because we're heading on to her secondary, which is Drum and Bass, which is a buff ability with 2 stages once again. The first stage buffs your ally's speed and size, while the secondary attack will release a shockwave in a circular motion that will help you strike. While you're buffing your ally's speed, the air around you will also reflect the core in a similar way to how the music did in the Demon Dice stage, or I guess does because they're fucking back in rotation now. Fuck you, Diamond Dice, I will always fucking hate you. This can be used to perform some combos with that shockwave hitbox, which will help you either remove some barriers or sometimes, if you time it correctly, it may even help you score. You also do get a bit of that speed and size buff if you just tap the button quickly, and it also lasts a little bit. It's still enough to move around the screen if you need a little more movement, but in general it's a skill that you're gonna use a lot, both for support, especially if you're goalie, or even on offense, sometimes to double tap or score. Her last ability is called Ensnare Drums, and basically it traps the core or the opponents into a cage where they either take damage or make the core bounce around by a lot. Only one of the walls is breakable. Or rather, only one of the barriers destroys in one hit, and it launches the core or the opponent into the other barriers that are instead 2 hits. This pretty much ensures that if an opponent is low on health, they're probably gonna get killed by this, and you can even combo it with other skills such as your secondary, especially when the core is inside, as we've seen earlier, to either build kinetic energy or deal more damage. This is probably her best scoring tool and killing tool. However, it also has an extra use that's especially very powerful, because it's something that most characters aren't able to do, and it's especially good when you're playing goalie. That being nullifying core flips. If somebody core flips at you, you can throw your special at them, and it's either gonna hit the core and make it bounce back, or it's gonna hit the opponent and cage them, stopping their core flip. So this skill definitely has a lot of uses, however it's also the one you're gonna have the least, because it's the one that has the longest cooldown. And I still think her secondary, it's a bit better on that regard. My first tip is to watch Kill la Kill, because these 2 characters are literally the fucking same, you cannot deny it. My second tip is to use your secondary always at the right time whenever you're playing goalie, either by buffing your allies so they can score easier, or by using the many hitboxes of the move to protect yourself and the goal as well as the barriers. Especially when buffed, this ability can cover pretty much entire barriers. For forward gears, I will highly suggest to not pick any speed buff. Instead, pick Pummelers or the Drain Staff. This is because they give you extra damage that you need to finish off opponents and to score easier. While the speed can be nice, you don't need it as much because unlike other characters like Rune, you do have way better range to compensate for your slow speed. For your gear as goalie, I would likely suggest Momentum Boots or Strike Shot. Momentum Boots will power up your speed, which is way more important as goalie, while Strike Shot will not only give you that extra projectile on your strike, which by the way gets powered up by Beat, which is extra sick, but it also buffs all of your projectiles range, which means you can pretty much help your teammates from across the entire map without ever leaving the goal. For Awakenings, she kind of works with most of them. All damage buffs can be really strong to have, as well as speed buffs, and even stuff like range of your projectiles, but you should especially prioritize buffs to your haste and other speed abilities, and there are especially 3 of these awakenings that you should get 100% as soon as you see them, because they make your character a lot stronger with just 1 awakening, which are these ones right here. She also works really well with one of the new awakenings that they added this patch, but I still have to check it out more. But to be honest, this works with pretty much anyone that has a larger size than normal. So for my final verdict, do I think Mako is hard to play? I think she's like an intermediate type of difficulty. She can be very hard to get used to, especially in some of her unique traits such as her passive, but to be honest, she also isn't that difficult to play in general. She's pretty much a similar big body heavy to type Asher, especially in some of her moves and movements, but she also compensates with some support ability and much higher range compared to Asher, so she still brings something very unique to Omega Strikers in my opinion. So did you like this guide? Let me know down below, and if you did, tell me which character you want to see next in the following 4 dummies on Omega Strikers.